How you all doing, everyone? You well? Yeah, we're in Tower, Berlin, 2017. Come on, how are you doing? Good, wonderful. It's great to be here. My name is Alvin, as Mario just mentioned, and really good to be here in Berlin. Came from London yesterday, in East London, and today I'm going to really talk about the fourth group, but also about challenging you guys to try and co-create a new political institution for the digital age. So hopefully at the end of this, you're going to be inspired to take action and hopefully work with us to make this a reality. My background is that I used to be a community organizer in Tottenham, which is a place in North London. Are you from Tottenham? Hey, are you actually from Tottenham?
Nearby.
Wonderful. Good. Great. Yeah, I'm sure Berlin's kind of near Tottenham as well. So listen, it's great to have someone from London here. And in Tottenham in 2011, there were riots which kicked off a lot of problems or symbolized a lot of the problems that are happening in the UK. And what we did as community organizers was gather people together, local people, to really think about what happened, why it happened, and what we could do together to really respond. And in a way, we're trying to do that with the fourth group. I then worked as a lobbyist, effectively lobbying mainly UK government to address criminal justice issues, and then also issues of poverty, really looking at the politics of policymaking. And today we're going to, as I said, talk about a new political institution for the digital age. And I'm guessing with all of the expertise in the room, people who have technical skills, who are founders, entrepreneurs, there's a lot of potential for you guys to collectively think about how we can build what I'll be talking about today. So, these beautiful faces are community members of the fourth group. We are a global community of people, currently 1,600 people online mainly, with hubs in London, Paris, Bogota, one growing in Berlin, which is great, also in Brisbane, Melbourne, and Vancouver. So we're growing in a year, and what we do is bring people together from politics and technology to really think about how the fourth industrial revolution is impacting society and economies, and therefore how politics should respond. We convene people from these communities, we collaborate, and we also create. So a couple of the products and services we're building currently include a School of Politics. So many of whom of you, I don't know what you think about politics today, but there have been so many people who have been reignited given what's happened, particularly around Brexit, as well as the US election, as well as the election in the Philippines, to want to do something. The big question is how to do it. So we're building a School of Politics, which will effectively teach you guys how to effectively engage and create change. The other more left field thing we're doing is creating a politician AI. So we know about certain industries, even lawyers are being automated, bricklayers are being automated. So could you potentially automate certain tasks that politicians are expected to do? This is one of the questions we're asking, and we're doing a hackathon in 2 weeks' time to think about how we can actually do that. So that's the example of stuff we've done. I'll just ask my colleague here to play this video.
La croissance exponentielle des technologies a changé la manière dont nous vivons, travaillons et profitons.
Esto representa la cuarta revolución industrial.
而家我哋個世界大啲，有好多嘢做得到。
نريد خلق سياسات جديدة في سياق هذه الثورة الصناعية الرابعة.
हम दुनिया की बेहतरी के लिए एक राजनीतिक आंदोलन बनाने चाहते हैं.
Besuchen Sie uns.
So, the big question today is, should we create a new political institution for the digital age? And it's a big question that our community has asked. And to kind of get things going, I'll give examples as to why we believe we really are at the cusp of this new institution being built. Before we can even answer that question, we need to just quickly define what an institution is. It's a significant practice, relationship, or organization in society or culture. Now I'm going to talk about 3 examples where we really see the problems and the challenges which particular societies and cultures have faced, and the actual reason for the birth of types of political institutions. So here's the first one. This is a fight in a pub, I think. Hopefully there don't be fights in the party tonight. But this effectively is a painting of representing the kind of battles, if you will, in 17th century England, where there were, through assembly politics, factions in politics who were trying to fight politically about the role of the monarchy. So it was the Whigs and the Tories, and initially they were factions, but then they became political parties. So the real challenge here was the issue of the role of the monarchy, and out of that became the genesis of what we now know as political parties. That was in 17th century England. The second painting, does anyone know what this painting is of? Someone whispered, but you need to be louder.
The signing of the Declaration of Independence.
Wonderful. You're from America, I'm guessing.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you. This is 1776. Is that date right? Yes, I think it is. 4th of July, where the former UK colonies, the 13 colonies, had decided to break away from the United Kingdom, or at the time it was called the Kingdom of Great Britain, to really call for their independence. And what we saw was the birth of a new type of institution, a nation. This is where a group of people decided together that they wanted independence, and out of that frustration was born a new political institution. And the third and final one is, I won't ask you guys where this is, but this is in London, and this photo signifies the birth of the United Nations. So I think it was around September 1945, just before the official end of the Second World War, where representatives from each nation came together to say, we do not want war, we want peace and prosperity for people around the world. And they came together and decided to build this new organization, this institution called the United Nations. Instead of like the political party, which gathered, people in local politics, and then America with nations, now we have nations coming together to build a new institution. So there it is, a quick slide through history. 17th century, political parties were born. 18th century, a new nation was born. The 20th, United Nations was born. And we're now in the 21st century, and there's a big question mark as to whether or not a new type of this kind of institution is about to be created. And one of the reasons why we believe that's the case is because of the impact of the Fourth Industrial Revolution. So those of you who don't know, the fourth is obviously the fourth in line. First we had steam, then mass production, then we had the internet, and now we have the Internet of Things. To kind of like encapsulate, there's a running joke about what the future looks like. I don't know if you guys have heard it, but in the future there'll be factories, many of which look like the ones that are outside this area, and there'll be robots inside them, as well as a human and a dog. And the dog's job is to protect the robots, and the human's job is to feed the dog. The point is that we're really seeing a lot of the impact of automation and all the kinds of technologies you guys are building, in many ways completely disrupting the way we live, work, and play. You guys know these buzzwords. They're all over pamphlets and marketing material: blockchain, cyber-physical systems, cryptocurrency, robotics, 3D printing, big data, mixed reality, virtual reality, privacy issues, autonomous vehicles, quantum computing, augmented reality, machine learning, nanotechnology. These are all new technologies which are being built and have so been evolved and developed over the last few decades. But we're really seeing some of really interesting things which are happening now, which, as somebody who's worked as a community organizer and in politics, my mind has been blown away about what's actually happening. So this, in a way, is impacting us in ways we haven't really understood. So to talk about the actual real challenges we face, we talked about the monarchy previously, we talked about the war previously and the need for independence. Here are some of the new challenges. So, new global technological inequalities. We've seen a huge amount of wealth amassed in certain geographic areas around the world. The obvious ones, Silicon Valley, Old Street in London. What does that mean for the rest of the world who might not have access to those hubs of creation, of means of production, and so forth? For me, this is a really interesting one: automation's impact on the labor market. This is obviously impacting so many people in low-income families and low-income jobs. So what's going to happen to the jobs? Will it need reskilling? Will it need actually for them to not even consider work, and we need an alternative to work? That's, for me, a really interesting thing, but also it's impacting people like yourselves, not only poorer people. Data protection, digital footprint, and privacy. You guys know this more than me, but your phone knows you more than yourself. Does anybody here like Bob Marley? Raise your hands. Great, so you're more likely to be a Democratic voter or vote for the Democrats. Does anybody like country music? Just a cough. So that's a no. If you do vote for, if you do like country music, you're more likely, according to Facebook analysis, to vote for the Republicans. So really understanding what that means for power, politics, and control within this world we live in today is a big question. 4 things around ethical considerations of artificial intelligence. We know it. Who writes the algorithms? What kind of decisions does it make? And therefore, what kind of architecture needs to be built to ensure that the ethical implications are really understood? This is the talk for the day, social media, fake news, and echo chambers. I won't go into it that much, but we know what it means. But the question is, how do we address it? And finally, the legal implications. If, for example, there was a case, I think, in the UK where a drone nearly flew into a plane. So who would be legally responsible for that accident if it were to happen? Would it be the owner of the drone, the manufacturer of the drone, or the actual airspace? There's a lot of big legal questions which lawyers are currently grappling with. So at the 4th group, our response really is, first of all, around education. There are so many people who don't necessarily know as much as you guys do about the latest scientific advancements happening today. And most importantly, to me, is the community we're building. As I said, we now have a global presence, and the whole point is for us to go through the slow grind of really working together with diverse groups of people from all different backgrounds to really understand what's happening, and therefore co-create answers to respond. We're also looking at philosophy, so questions around the social contract. What do governments, businesses, and citizens around the world need to agree now in this new world we live in? And finally, political technology. So we build stuff, a couple of things I've already mentioned before, including the politician AI. So here it is. Here is a hint of what our conversations so far have pointed to in terms of what this new political institution is. And I say a hint because we're not there yet. Instead of having 10 people in a room decide what it is, we're saying we want to talk to people around the world and actually define it together. But here are some of the things that are coming out for the conversations. First of all, powered by citizens. So as opposed to uniting nations or political parties, unite every single individual here through the use of technology. And you can already think about how we can use social media and WhatsApp and so forth for that. Also, it's about co-creating a global agenda. So instead of leaving it to the politicians to deal with and decide what the big issues are today, we actually then say, okay, it could be as simple as you have an application on your phone which states what is it you care about the most and what is it you want to be addressed. And therefore, effectively, you create a citizens-created sustainable development goals type agenda. Our current focus is also on global problems. So what happens in Silicon Valley affects what happens in Manila, which affects what happens in another city, Delhi. What is it that we can do to tackle these big global problems? Of course, there are other institutions like the United Nations that still exist, but actually there are new types of problems which we feel that we need to address: climate change, all the kind of challenges I mentioned just previously. Diverse representation, automated decision-making, like the politician AI idea, equitable progress, data-driven interventions, and impact-focused policy. In a way, what we're looking at here is the potential for a new type of institution which will really make the use of every citizen across the world to create change, and the change that they want, and also make sure that politics does what it was intended to in the beginning, which was to improve the state of the world. So that's a hint of what we're doing, and hopefully I've challenged you guys to join us on this journey. It took wars and it took battles for previous citizens to decide we're going to create something new to really address the problems we're facing. But at a time of relative peace and prosperity, could we come together like this conversation we had in London last week and the one we're having today in Berlin, really decide what it is, the new power structures as well as the new way of organizing us together in communities looks like. Hopefully it will look like that, and hopefully you'll join this journey. Thank you so much for listening. Have a great rest of the festival.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.